Welcome back to Make It Happen. Today's show is for you. If you are a marketer, a speaker, or growing a business, you're going to love this interview with Mike Ganino, where we talk all about how to create your story and share it through marketing so that you can get the kind of results that you want, not just with your potential clients, but with your employees as well. He shares some great tips, and I'm excited that he's here. We also have my favorite things that will be at the end of the episode and a Pick My Brain segment about how to share a quick story in a 1-minute video. Stay tuned for today's Make It Happen. For today's Pick My Brain, we're going to a client, my friend and client, Heather Gibson. She was asking me about how to create a quick, short, 1-minute video that converts and sells. She has an opportunity with a media group that is going to feature her. And so she wanted to have a 1-minute video on her landing page that would help her tell the story that needs to be told and convert people to her home court advantage so that she could grow her email list. I told her that she needed 3 parts. First and foremost, she needed to help them understand what problem she can solve for them. Second, she needs to say why she is the one to solve the problem, but also needs to relate. So if she's coming from an expert standpoint, she has to be able to share with them why she can relate to them, why she's been where they've been, and then to share the opportunity in a way that feels easy and almost in a no-brainer format. I was really impressed with what she came up with me just giving that simple 3-step process. And so I'm going to show you her video so that you can see what she put together right here. So if you want to try it, if you're looking for a quick 1-minute conversion video, you can use the same format that she did, but then also she put her own little flair on it. Take a look and watch this video.
Do you want to up-level the nutrition in your breeding program? Do you want healthier, larger litters? Do you want extra income for doing things you're already doing? Money that will give you freedom to spend more time with your family, your breeding program, and in your life? 4 years ago, I was just where you are today. My name is Heather Gibson, and I am passionate about breeding healthy, well-socialized animals. And when I first heard about pottery, I'll be honest, I was a little bit skeptical. But I'm happy to share it is the best decision I've ever made in my breeding program. So if you're ready to up-level the health, the nutrition, and the income in your breeding program, click the I'm Ready button below. I'll be with you every step of the way. Let's get this party started.
See how that video came to be? I loved how quickly and succinctly she was able to share how she can make their life better, and also to say, while I am here in my business, I remember what it was like to be you. And I think that's really important messaging. Today, we're talking all about how to share your story with Mike Ganino. So I thought this question was certainly apropos, and now you get to see a little mini story in action before we dive into our interview. If you have a question that you'd like to send into the Pick My Brain, send it to Michelle at speakmichelle.com. We are going to put the details in the show notes, and you can also see my email address right here on the screen. Put Pick My Brain in the subject line, and I would love to answer one of your questions on a future episode of Make It Happen. Well, I am thrilled for our guest today on Make It Happen. Mike Ganino is someone that I met a few months back at the National Speakers Association. We had met even a year or two ago. He helped us with Speakers Academy and came and did a virtual presentation, and he came live to Salt Lake City. And I just really loved the way that he showed up, and I knew that he needed to be part of an episode on Make It Happen. What you need to know about Mike is that he is listed as one of the top 10 speaking coaches by Yahoo. He has worked with top brands like Disney and Uber. He also has an impressive backdrop with his own speaking, but was the executive producer of TEDxCambridge. And so he's done a lot of work that has helped us today. But what I love about Mike is his ability to be able to help you share a story that can help you in your marketing. So whether you're a speaker or whether you run a business or whether you have a small business, large business, or everything in between, we're going to be talking all about how to tell your story in marketing today. Mike, welcome to Make It Happen.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the lovely intro and bringing me here to this colorful place on the internet.
I love it. I love that you're here. I'm excited for today's conversation, and I would love for you to share with our audience, how did you get started in this work and what keeps you passionate about it today?
I think I don't know if it's the origin story, because that was probably like, psychologists say that between like 7 and 10 is when your like adult paradigm is imprinted, and all the good stuff and all the trauma, it all comes from that phase when you start to realize like you're a person. So I don't have a great story for that, but I think that the origin of me realizing that the way we communicate, the stories we tell, is really the critical tool in getting whatever we want done in the world, whether it's inside of our business, whether it's on stages as a public speaker, whether it's an author writing a book. Being able to communicate your ideas in a way that other people say, I totally get that, let's run with it. That happened to me when I was in my early 20s. I was an actor in Chicago, and like many actors, I mostly was working in the restaurant industry, and I was a manager at this sandwich shop called Potbelly Sandwich Shop back when they were a teeny tiny little place with like 7 locations. I ended up staying there for a long time, becoming the director of training and opening many locations. But at the time I was 21, barely turned 21, living in Chicago, working at this place. And I recognized over and over and over that the company, the organization, struggled to get the team to do what they wanted them to do. The training, the way they communicated, the story, the values of the brand, the customer service. And so I thought, we're small enough. Who's gonna there was like one person in HR. Like, what is she gonna do? Come and yell at me if I do the orientation for new employees in a new way, if I tell our customer service model in a new way. So I just started weaving them into stories, telling stories about a time when somebody did the value we were talking about, a time when a customer had a specific experience, a time when somebody had gotten promoted for doing the right things. And that took off. I got promoted, eventually to running our new store opening division, opening hundreds of locations. All at the same time that I was doing the acting on the side and doing improv at Second City and Improv Olympics and all those places. And I started to realize that was really valuable business currency, being able to weave a narrative around why things happened, what was happening, where we were going, that was really the thing that I was better at than everyone else that kept getting me promoted. And so I really doubled down on how do I leverage narrative and storytelling, public speaking skills to get real results for business. And that led me to another company. I sold a ton of wine along the way, sold a couple of restaurant companies that I helped build along the way. And then in 2014, sold a brand that I was a partner in and decided I want to do something new. And I started consulting originally. And I was a horrible consultant because I'm really bad at deliverables. Like if I owe you something, you're never going to get it. Like I'm just really bad at like, even down to where like if I'm on a call with a client, we'll finish our coaching session, our like speaking coaching session. And we'll do like, okay, so now that we're done with the time you paid for, what's going on? What's up with you? I'll stop the recording so I can send it to them in the moment because I'm just really bad at all of that. So I thought I'm not going to get a lot of consulting gigs because I'm great when I'm in front of you, but like I disappear when I disappear. And so I started doing workshops. I started selling instead of consulting. I would come in and work with an organization on their people plan, their leadership plan, their growth plans. And that worked so much so that somebody who was at one of those companies was running an association and said, hey, can you come and be the keynote speaker at our event? And I was like, sure, yeah, that sounds cool. And then I was like, oh, this is really cool. I did that for like 6 months. And a company that had hired me said, we want you to come back and work with us again. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, you have high turnover in the restaurant industry. There's people leaving all the time. So yeah, I could come back and do the same speech even. And they're like, no, we don't want you to speak. And I thought, well, you're not the first person to say you would pay me to shut up. And so what they wanted was for me to come in and coach their executive team on their speeches because they had important information. The marketing team, the operations team had important things that they needed to communicate, and nobody listens because it wasn't delivered in a way that was compelling and interesting. So they hired me to do that. And that, Michelle, is when I thought, oh, when you put on you're shopping and you're like, not this jacket. And then you put one on, you're like, oh, she's nice. This is the one this was made for me. That's how I felt in that moment. And so I pivoted everything and really started working with organizations and now mostly individuals on speeches and communication, telling their stories out there.
And I think this is one of the reasons why I like you and I'm drawn to what you do, because we do similar things. I do work in the marketing space. I also do public speaking, and I've told individuals for a long time and companies that there are two stories that you need to tell, excuse me, that are your most profitable stories. The story that you tell your customer to get them to want to buy, which we call marketing, and the story that you tell your team and your employees to get them to perform, which we call leadership. And in the midst of those two stories, that is where everything happens in the business. And, you can add a lot of other things in there. Culture is a part of that. Story that you tell internally. And there are, of course, lots of pieces to the marketing. But at the end of the day, if people don't resonate with what you're saying, then they're not going to do the things that you want them to do, which is why I feel like understanding those marketing stories are so critical. And to your point, I remember working corporate and sitting in terrible annual meetings where the CEO was the most boring person on the planet trying to roll out the plan for the year, and we're all falling asleep. And yet the one guy in marketing is happy and peppy, and we're like, well, listen to him all day, and not always that stereotypical, but there's the one person that you want to listen to, and there's a bunch that are dry.
Yeah.
So as you think about the businesses that are around, and there are a number of different people who watch the show in the small to medium business space that are thinking, okay, well, I'm not a corporate CEO with 1 million employees. How do I tell my story? And so what would you recommend to somebody who's just thinking, oh, do I need a story? What do I do? How do I get started? What does my story look like that will help move the needle for profitability, either for inside their teams or through their prospects?
I've worked with a ton of people in the real estate industry. I've worked with USA Mortgage. I've worked with Keller Williams. I've worked with a bunch of groups here in Los Angeles, because those are like super micro businesses, often just one person who is doing that. And I don't know about Salt Lake City. I'm assuming, given the real estate market there, it's similar to the Los Angeles real estate market in that I feel like if you're in like West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, every person you meet is a combination of several things. They're usually a real estate agent / actor / fitness trainer / influencer. And it's for sure that they're two of those. So there are a ton of real estate agents, I think in pretty much every market. There's so many choices. And to some degree, they're not in charge of the product. Like they're not in charge of the product. So they really have to be able to tell compelling stories about why choosing them is different than the other. Otherwise, they become commodities. And they're one of the smallest businesses out there with just one person. And so the only way to compete with bigger dollar marketing, the only way to compete in a sea of commoditization, which so many of us are becoming. I see this all the time when I work with speakers as well, where their lead is, I'm a speaker. And it's like, well, nobody's just wandering around saying, my speaker department really hurts. Like, what is it that you are about? That's what we need to hear. And so that story as a small business owner is actually, I think, your biggest asset in being able to avoid being commoditized and being able to really communicate why working with you, buying your goods, hiring you is going to be different than the next person in line. Because otherwise, when there isn't a compelling, emotionally relevant reason to choose you, we just choose the easiest option or the one that's in front of us.
Well, and I think that's a really important point, and I want you to talk a little bit more about this if you can. But a lot of businesses are looking at facts and dollars and bottom lines. But to your point, you have to be emotionally relevant. Like what is it that changes from saying, hey, here are the features and benefits of my products, into shifting into a story format? And do you have any tips or suggestions about starting to build out that story so that it can emotionally resonate with people?
Well, isn't it funny that we think that all the time? We think like, no, I make very logical decisions. Right. But we don't at all. The CEO of our brain is making emotional decisions all of the time. It makes no sense, the things we do. If we only made logical decisions, then everybody would probably drive like a Prius, but we don't. We make emotional, there would be one best car, right? There would be one perfect size house. It would be like every human needs 100 square feet, but that is not. I was in Salt Lake City with you this summer and I saw some of those houses. People are making big old delicious decisions. Those are emotional. Those are not logical decisions. We choose one neighborhood over the other. We commute really far distances because we want to live in a certain place. Those are not logical decisions at all. Those are emotional. When we go to the grocery store, we make emotional decisions. And so that idea If we could just, as small business owners, medium business, everybody could divorce the idea of people, my customers, my employees are making decisions based on what's logical, I think we would be a lot better off, because we use logic to explain our emotional decision making. So we use logic to explain our emotional decision making. And you don't have to have lost many family members or friends in a Facebook war about politics or whatever people are fighting about today to realize that there's lots of ways to look at the same piece of information. There's a lot of ways to look at the same facts or to find facts to support you. What we need to do is appeal to the emotional decision-making of a buyer, of an employee that we want to work with us. I see this all the time, even on LinkedIn, where recruiters will post like, we're looking for a this, that, and the other. And it's like these recruiters are in a desperate place right now, really needing people to work. And that's like the least interesting copy, the least interesting story ever, versus like starting it off with being like, imagine waking up in the morning and doing your pour over coffee. If you're hiring a hipster who makes pour over, or I'm not really a hipster. I'm kind of like a 41-year-old suburban dad, but I like to pretend I'm a hipster, Michelle, and I do my pour over coffee every day.
You're a hipster.
So that could be so much. I have the tattoos to prove it, right? So it could be so much more relevant, and it could help you find the right people if we thought through, how does this person view themselves in the world, and how can I position what we do to help them? For example, if you were thinking of, I call it your WTF story, and we can call that, for the safety of the internet here, of YouTube, I don't want to hurt your ratings, we can call it the what the friction moments of your business, especially for small and medium business owners, where you as the business owner are a critical part of the story of your business, and probably a critical part of why someone is going to hire your business versus the other. One of the things there is to ask, what was my WTF story, my what the friction moment, where I realized that the world looked a certain way and I just didn't. I thought there could be a better way. I thought, what is going on? There's got to be something different here. If you can tap into what that was, then you're going to be able to, and then put that together in a way of like what the world looked like, the change that was going on in your brain at that moment, and what you saw for like the new future, the new story. Even if you're brand new to business, that story is relevant. You don't have to have 27 testimonials. You could have started your business yesterday, and that story of like, here's what I saw, here's what I thought was wrong, and this is the new story I'm chasing. Even if you haven't accomplished that new story yet, that is going to be super relevant to someone who says, you know what? I was just sitting there thinking, why is it like this? And I'm so glad I found you, that you see what I see out there. Let's go. I want to work with you because I want what you just promised me. So that story is a really critical one. The other one I see small and medium business owners not have the craft to be able to tell properly. And this is vital for the employee side, the leadership side, like you said, and the marketing side, both. We often see people talking about their values. We see it on their websites, and the values are written as like it's a dictionary definition. We value customer priority first. That means we do this. What would be so much more relevant is a story from yesterday about you doing that. What would be relevant is a story about a time when it wasn't convenient to do that, and you did it anyway. Those stories are going to mean so much more to your employees in an orientation, in a job ad, in a coaching session, when you can say, here's what this means to us. Let's talk about what I just saw yesterday. If you're trying with your team to do what I'm a public speaking coach and I can't think of a word, shockingly, to do recognition, saying, oh, Michelle did a great job. She's making great videos on brand for us. Being able to say, one of the things I love is the amount of detail that Michelle went through to produce these videos for our team. It isn't easy. It would have been easy to cut the corner here or here, but she went and did this thing. And that is an example of us, our commitment to excellence. That means so much more. It gives other employees an example of what to chase, what to look for, what to do. And it's a lot clearer than just a dictionary definition. The same thing works in sales. If you are on the marketing side talking about, we value integrity with our customers, and integrity means doing what we say. Well, was there a time recently when you were pushed to not do what you would say, when it would have been more convenient to not do what you say and you did it anyway. It's like when people talk about like a vulnerability story. It's like, I want to tell a vulnerability story. Yesterday, I was hungry and I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and I made a mess. And it's like, there's no risk in that. That's not a vulnerability story. That's just like, I call it faux vulnerability, where it's like, I'm trying to be vulnerable. The same thing happens in our value stories where we say, it's like saying, I value not throwing babies out the window. Okay. Was there ever a time where you were pushed to do that and you said not to? Like,
right.
We need to hear when did the stone meet the grind and you did the right thing. Those stories are going to mean so much more to the people you want to work with.
I love that. And I think that to your point, we can tell people or we can show people. And it's just that simple principle of, are we really talking through all of these pieces or are we showing them? And I think that also was a shift for me in my speaking business to a certain extent. Everyone's producing speaker reels. And then I chose to, with the help of a friend who I watched do something similar, take one of my stories, and we got actors to act it out, and it is me doing the voiceover. And now I send that over to people to evaluate me for speaking more than a speaker reel, because they get taken on an emotional journey. And yeah, there's clips that we put in there of me speaking so that they can get an idea of what that looks like. But I shifted from just the, hey, this is what Michelle does, to, hey, here's a story. And that brings people in to that emotional side and shows them what can be done rather than telling them what could be done. And that's a valuable part of the marketing process and helping them with whatever story. I love this conversation, and I'll put a couple of my favorite brands in the show notes that I feel like have changed their marketing to tell stories. I think Chatbooks is great at this. One, we joke about Clever Cutter because I bought a Clever Cutter off of a 30-second commercial just because it told me how it was going to make my life better. And so, but it's a terrible video. It's not even high quality, but because they told the story in the right way, it made me want to buy. And so whether it's a big brand or a small brand, if we can just dial in the story piece, I think that it makes all the difference.
Well, it's what every infomercial does. Like, we can make fun of infomercials all we want, but they're effective because they do a great job at putting a story together that puts the person on the other end like, you know what? The Tupperware does fall out of the cabinet on my head every time I open the door. I should check this out. It really helps you understand yourself with that product in your hand. That's really the key of it.
Right, for sure. I feel like I would be missing an opportunity to have you on this show if there wasn't something that you would want to share about stories and speaking, which, because I know that's the core of who you are and what you do, and marketing is a part of that. But there are people who participate in the audience that are speakers like me as well. So what tips or thoughts do you have in terms of crafting your story or fine-tuning your story in a way that would help? And I know that you have a full course on this, and there's no way we could talk about it in 7 minutes. But what are some tips or ideas that would give people just a little shift in how they either tell their stories or write their stories?
I think 3 specific things here. One is that I think public speaking is marketing, because you are trying to sell an idea, a way of thinking. You're trying to create demand for a new type of world we see. So I think all public speaking is marketing in a way. Even if you're not selling something, especially if you're not selling something, it's really marketing a new way of seeing the world so the audience can be shifted. So I think that hands down, all public speakers are marketers. All great public speakers are marketers, I'll say. 2, that public speaking is, I believe, one of the greatest marketing tools we have out there. You can write great copy. You can write a great book. You can have a great website. But there is something about being able to look down the barrel of a lens. There is something about being able to be on stage in front of someone and communicate what you see, because it's full. It's 3-dimensional. We come alive and we can sense it. Like, we know whether we trust you or whether you believe in what you're doing right off the bat. And so being able to effectively get on stage or screen is the best marketing you can have, because it's when we really get to test out whether what you're saying is true. Versus when we read it, we get time to sit and think and ponder, and the words can be crafted a certain way. But when you're in front of us communicating, that is, I think, the people who can get on stages or get on screen and communicate their ideas. Those have always been. Look at the biggest stars in the world. the biggest influencers in the world, they're all people who can talk to us in person about what they feel. And even people who are really famous authors, we want to go see them in person. Elizabeth Gilbert, Cheryl Strayed, we want to go see them in person to see them read pieces of the book we just read because we want to experience that. And then the third thing about stories is, I think one of the biggest challenges people have in storytelling, this is 3A and B. Can I have a 3A and B, a two-part answer here?
For sure.
A is that they're not sure where the story's going. One of the things when I work with people and when they're working with me inside of my programs, when I'm coaching them, is where does this end? And it's one of the tricks actually from right down the street here in Hollywood of what's the last scene of this? And then we can go back and say, okay, now that we know that, we can kind of decide how much stuff is going in on the front end. And I think you've even seen me work with people live like this, where it's like, okay, we can probably cut out a lot of stuff and from the beginning that we don't need, add more stuff to the middle that makes it emotionally relevant, specificity, so that it helps us achieve a certain goal at the end. So that's number one, is I don't think people think about where does this end. So start with the final scene. And then you can work backwards and say, okay, for that scene to be rewarding to an audience, how much do they need to know? What would make that rewarding if that's the final scene? And then the second part of this, which is I kind of alluded to there, is we can often cut out so much of the front end of a story. We think the audience needs so much backstory, but they don't. And if they do, when you're talking and you realize they don't understand something, you can go back and said, oh, so the guy that I'm talking about, I met him 10 years ago. We were studying together in France. Okay, back to the story now. We tend to put so much in the front end of a story to explain the exposition, the who, the what, the where, and the why, that by the time we get to where something happened, the audience is not paying attention anymore. They've tuned out, they're tweeting, they're TikToking, they're dreaming of lunch. And so what I often say is find the highest moment of the story and maybe start one step before that instead of 10 steps before that.
Which I think is incredibly valuable, because I have always been a storyteller that does build up, and the last thing is the funny thing or the powerful thing or the last statement. And when you were working with me, it was like, no, we're going to put that at the beginning. And I'm still trying that and figuring that out. It's so tricky. But I think that, to your point, we can cut out way more. And I think marketers can do the same thing. You're saying way too much. Get to it faster. Figure out how to get there. And then if you need to add a little bit of context, do. But sometimes I think in an effort to sell, we over talk, and we can take it back and be a lot more concise in what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like, if you think of a James Bond movie is a great example, like that opening scene before the credits, it's like bing, bang, boom, chase, this, that. And you're there like, what's happening? What is going on? Why are they chasing? And what's going to go? And we all don't need to sell those kinds of stories, but starting closer to the action is almost more helpful, because we don't need to know how you got to that point. What we want to know is, in that moment, in that crucible moment, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind? Because our backstory is probably not the same as yours. So we start to disconnect because we're like, oh, well, I'm not a 41-year-old suburban dad living in LA pretending to be a hipster with coffee and tattoos. So it's like, oh, this isn't for me. But if I start in that moment of like closer to the action, you can probably say, I don't even need to know much about him to know that I felt that way before. And I need to tune in because this might be valuable to help me with something I've got going on.
Right. I absolutely agree. Well, thank you so much. It's like our time is going by so fast. I'm thinking I could sit and talk to you for hours. That would be very fun and exciting.
I would love it.
For those who want more, where can they get to know more? And will you please tell them about what you were sharing with me before the show about the 5 tools for businesses on marketing, and then anything else that you feel like will be relevant? Because I'm sure there will be other people who want to continue the conversation as well.
Yeah, I'm super easy to find. That's the key of having an SEO friendly name like Ganino. If you type in Mike Ganino, Ganino, you'll find me. I'll be the one on all the places. So you could just type that and you'll find me on your favorite socials, or MikeGanino.com, where you can learn more about the mic drop method, which is my deep coaching experience. You can learn about all kinds of things. I've also got a guide. That's what Michelle was talking about. A free guide over at MikeGanino.com/storycraft. And it helps you go through the 5 stories I think all entrepreneurs need to be able to tell. And if you are a speaker out there, you're not an entrepreneur on the small, medium business side, you need to be able to tell these stories in your website, on maybe not on stages, you'll never tell them, but you need to tell them on sales calls. You need to tell them here, there, and everywhere. And so it's the 5 stories you need to tell. Prompts in order to help you tell them, like deep prompts. They told me, Michelle, to write like a lead magnet. And I was like, okay. So I went away and I wrote like a 20-page book, workbook. And they came back and they're like, we meant like a 1-pager. And I was like, I don't do 1-pagers. They can have a 20-page book for free. So it's a great workbook, guides you through how to structure a story, how to cut out the fat like we were talking about. And that's at MikeGanino.com/storycraft.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm excited to check that out. I wish I had heard about that before today. But I'm excited to dive in. We will, of course, share that link in the show notes so that you can find it quickly and easily in the comments and description here. Mike, thank you for being on Make It Happen. We totally appreciate you and for being here. And I can't wait for us to connect again.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I am excited, maybe a little too excited for a few of my favorite things I'm going to share with you. Now, I know the holidays are over and it is mean for me to share with you something that you cannot get for another 11 months. However, if you don't make plans now, they are going to be gone. This bag right here of Fannie Mae s'mores snack mix peppermint style. Okay, I found them in October. I have not seen them since November 15th. They are gone. There were cases at the Sam's Club. Luckily, I bought 5 bags to give to other people, but now they're only getting a sampling. Here's something that I learned this year, okay, in 2021, that's taking me into 2022. It's not that I don't like peppermint. It's that I don't like too much peppermint. What I want is just a little bit of a flavor. Now, I like a good York peppermint patty as long as the chocolate to peppermint ratio is on, so I can never get a big one. I always have to have the small ones. But what I love about these is the peppermint is not overpowering. So mark your calendars for October 2022 to go to Sam's Club or Costco, hopefully they will have them, and buy 72 cases of these so that they will last you for all year. I did not buy enough. You heard it here first. Okay, number 2, if we're getting a little bit more serious, Audible. How come I have never talked about Audible and my favorite things before? I get so much listen time that they send me awards. You have listened more than other normal humans who have a life. Now, my life is a little bit different because I spend a lot of time in the car getting kids to and from school because they go across town. And I do a lot of work I live in Provo, but we do a lot of work in Salt Lake. So I get to listen to lots of books, but it makes my car a roaming university. I have some great books to recommend. I'm going to put them in the show notes, whether you're looking for personal development or just some brain candy. There are a few books you should probably listen to. Now, not all Audible books are created equal, so please listen to samples before you buy them because you might be sad. However, one of the reasons why I love Audible is if you listen to a chapter or 2 and you hate it, you can return it and either get your money back or your credits back. You're welcome. Okay, now it's the beginning of the year and everyone is asking me, Michelle, what is the best planner out there? And there are a lot of planners out there. Everyone and their mother's dog except me have created a planner and don't think I haven't thought about it. But there are so many other out there that I'm not sure which. So I have used and enjoyed the Full Focus Planner from Michael Hyatt. It is a great choice. I like the way that it breaks out different aspects of personal and professional life. It has the time management on there. I also have really enjoyed Brendan Burchard's High Performance Planner. There's another one I don't have with me today that I also enjoy called the Success Choice Planner. Pamela Henry does that. It's a little bit more geared towards women and their roles and responsibilities, which I think is really great if you're looking for one that kind of manages and balances that. Even if you're a busy woman who has a job, there's a great way to keep track of your other things. But here's the trick. I'm going to tell you actually which planner is the best. Are you ready? The best planner is the one that you'll use. So whether you like digital apps or tools or you like physical planners, stop being a planner buying junkie like me and just use the one that you know will work best for you. If you're just trying to hop from one planner to the next to find the right one, I'm all about trial. In fact, you could even spend $100 on a few different planners, try them for 2 or 3 weeks, get into the groove of what they feel like because it takes a couple weeks to get into the groove. But then once you find the one that's right for you, stick with it and keep going. I believe that plan is your 4-letter word for success. So as you think about your goals, and we talked about in the previous episode about how to create goals for the next 12 months, having some sort of system that will keep them close and at the forefront for you will be helpful, whether you, like I said, you use an app on your phone or you have a physical one. I tend to be a little bit of a hybrid. I like to plan using a pen and paper and a planner, but I like to run my life digitally. So I like to see the calendar a little bit bigger, but then I put it all on my phone because I have left these things that are my life in all kinds of uncomfortable places. They have fallen and I don't find them for months and months, but I really keep track of that phone there and I can ping it whenever I need to and it's lost. So you can't ping one of these guys. They just get lost and then you're sad forever. So find a good planner that works for you, but keep it and stay committed. And if you need to find something new or you're finding that your current planner isn't quite working, it might be time for a change. Those are a few of my favorite things. I loved hearing the conversation with Mike Ganino, and I hope you loved it as well. Whether you are a small business or a big business, there are certainly ways that you can tweak your message and your story so that you can get the results that you want. I hope you'll take advantage of all of Mike's resources and just be thinking about the ways you can emotionally connect with your clients. Thanks so much for tuning in, and if you loved today's episode, I would love for you to share an honest review on your favorite platform. Tell people what you liked about today's episode so that other people who are looking for shows like this will find it based off of your recommendation. Always subscribe so that you can make sure to get the latest and you can be alerted when a new episode is ready. Thank you for being part of the Make It Happen community, and we'll see you next week.